Hello everybody, welcome back to Volt Vehicles. In this video I wanted to talk to you guys about whether or not an e-scooter or an e-bike is something for you, and what should you consider if you're thinking of buying one of these types of modes of transportation, because it's definitely something I've been thinking about a lot over the last couple of years, since I've been getting into micro mobility electrical vehicles. And they have their different uses and lots of pros and cons, and I wanted to talk about them to you guys here. I've mainly ridden electric bikes, but I also have ridden e-scooters, so I have a pretty first-hand experience of the main differences and considerations to think about when you want to buy one, and who is it that could have either or the other. So if we start with the electric bikes, they've got a lot of pros and there's also some cons here. So the thing is, with an electric bike, if you think about it, you don't need to have a battery. If the battery runs out, you can still use it. You can use an electric scooter if the battery runs out, but the thing is, like, you can just kick it, but it's not at all as effective as, say, riding a bike with a 0% battery. You're going to be able to get much faster with a bike. So that's something that is very nice, is that they have still a pretty useful function, even if their batteries run out. Because of the fact that a bike uses your pedals often at times, or sometimes if you don't ghost pedal, then that's going to add up to a little bit more longer range over time, because you're going to be able to add your own power to sort of compensate. So you'll get some pretty nice range. Also, a reason that electric bikes, I find them to get a bit more range is because they you can have very thin tires and large wheels that roll really nicely. So then you can also potentially get a lot more range, but that depends a lot on what kind of electric bike you have. Some are really fat tire, really heavy bikes, and then you're not going to get so far on those kind of bikes. If you have a very efficient road bike with an electric motor, then you're going to get very much further than a scooter. And you also have, this depends a lot on bike to bike, but you could also potentially have a very aerodynamic sitting position and handlebars, and then you could also get longer range because of that. While an electric scooter, you're on upright, completely standing, you're like a big sail that the wind is going to blow away, so you're less effective when it comes to your aerodynamics. When it comes to the stability of electric bikes, there's also a big con. You've got big tires. When you've got big wheels, that absorbs the bumps better. Obviously, you can have really big tires, but just the fact that you've got a really big circle as your wheel makes you just automatically absorb the bumps better, because in proportion to the size, there's a bit of physics to explain, but you could think about this: the bigger your wheel is, the less impact a bump is going to have on your overall impact. Well, if you have small wheels, then it's going to be a bigger impact on the bumps. You could think of it like this: imagine yourself going on a skateboard and you're going over cobblestone. Do you think that is going to be more comfortable, more wobbly, or is going to be more wobbly going on a bicycle? I mean, it's going to be almost impossible to go on a skateboard because of those really, really tiny wheels. And maybe it's not as extreme as a skateboard, but when you're using a scooter, then you're going to have also smaller wheels, and you'll feel those bumps quite a bit more. But then it depends a lot on scooter to scooter, because some scooters can have shock absorption and very fat tires, which can even out a lot of that. But generally speaking, when you're going with a big wheeled 28-inch bike, it's going to be having a lot easier time going on those bumps compared to a scooter. And in that way, it's going to feel a lot more stable. Also, the stability of the bike comes from the fact that they often have wider handlebars. Now you can adjust this when you've got the handlebar adjustment on a scooter. You can have very wide handlebars there, but just the way the scooters are constructed, the long stems, they don't feel, in my experience, to be as stable as a bike. I feel a lot more stable on a bike. So that's a con that I would say goes to the electric bikes. It feels a lot more natural to ride them than the scooters, in my opinion. And then when it comes to the availability of parts can be quite easy to find on bikes. Bikes are bikes. I mean, if you've got 28-inch wheels, you can find easily replacement tires. While scooters, they come in very many different types of tire sizes. The same thing goes for electric bikes as well. You can find many different types of tire sizes there as well. But what I mean is, if you've got a standard bike, chances are, I find that you're going to be able to find a bigger variety of different types of tires and replacement parts. Because, I mean, e-bikes already have regular bikes which you can use the same parts, and some are maybe more optimized for electric bikes, but it's the same thing. So you've got two different markets that you can take advantage of, both regular bikes but also the e-bike markets when it comes to sourcing parts. So that's something I like about it. You can just, generally speaking, find nice tires, you can find rear racks, everything that's compatible for it. And also, something that, in my opinion, I like about the electric bikes is that you can sit down on them. Now, this, I know that some people don't like this. Some people don't like to be able to sit down. It hurts their butt to sit down on bikes. So this is a very biased opinion, but it's something that I like a lot. When you're going on long rides, I personally like to be able to sit down for a long time because it feels nice. While if I'm standing up for a long time, it makes my legs feel a bit tired. And then also a nice thing about the electric bikes is that since they are very big, and usually you're able to then hang a lot of cargo on them, you can have a rear rack, as you can see here, a rear rack. You can put a lot of box or something here that can carry cargo. You can also put a front rack, have something here. Then you can put a trailer and carry something here. The thing is, though, you can also potentially have a trailer on a scooter. You can put a hitch and put a trailer there. And you can also hang some bags here and have a small bag. But just because of how much more stable I find the electric bikes to be, I find it a lot more suitable for the cargo. And especially when you've got a heavy weight, then those big wheels are going to help even out those bumps a lot more. Imagine that, tiny wheels, heavy weight. You can have a really bad time if you encounter the smallest little bump on the road. And then also something I like about electric bikes is that they're a little bit more friendly when it comes to DIY style. What I mean by that is that you've got a lot of electric bike conversion kits out there from Bafang and then also some other places like Tongshen, for example. You can find electric bike conversions where you can take regular bikes, make them to electric bikes. It's a bit difficult to find parts for it's not as straightforward or like pre-made for electric scooters. Now you can find kits for electric bikes that are very common, but it's not so common to find scooter kits as it is when it comes to electric bikes. And you can then also take an electric bike or like a regular bike that you already have, and then you can convert it to an electric bike, so then sort of get that for free, so to say. So DIY is very nice when it comes to electric bikes, in my opinion. A lot of options there you've got. What are the bad things about electric bikes then? Well, they're really bulky. They're very bulky. They require a lot of space. Often they're very heavy as well. Many electric bikes are very heavy because they are overly built just to be able to withstand all the electronic components and the speeds people go at. So they're very heavy, a lot heavier. Some scooters can also be very heavy, but I find them to just be more bulky, especially the big wheeled bikes. They're very bulky. You can go a scooter, you can be really small, compact, no problem, but you can go a really big bike, you can be very bulky. And not just because of the wheels, but it's also because of the little drivetrain. So it takes a lot more space. Say you've got a folding bike, you have a small folding bike, they take very little amount of space, but still you can have all that drivetrain, the train grease, everything, all the pedals. It is a bit more fiff-faff when you compare the bikes in terms of their bulkiness compared to the scooters. Then that takes me into the drivetrain. All bikes have drivetrains. Now, if you have an electric bike and you just use throttle, okay, I guess with a hub motor, then I guess it doesn't matter. But especially with a mid motor, you're going to have to do a lot of drivetrain maintenance. And if you want to be able to pedal, then you're going to have to keep that oil lubed. And you want to make sure all your gears work and all that kind of stuff. Electric scooters, I don't think I've ever seen an electric scooter with gears, but they're always a single gear, just one hub motor. Very little maintenance. Now you've got just the brakes, no drivetrain in that same way. So a lot less complicated maintenance for the scooters. But then again, scooters can also have maybe very specific parts that are harder to source, which maybe is a bit easier to find on a bike. But it's like less complex. Just a hub motor, that's it. While electric bikes have a hub motor, but then on top of that, they've got the chain, they've got the gears, a lot more complex. And depending on like what kind of gear systems you can have, you maybe have to adjust them. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good time. A lot simpler when it comes to the electric scooters. They're also less portable to take on public transport because they're bulkiness. So say I want to use a bike, I want to take it on the public transport. Yeah, you can use foldable bikes. They're also possible. They're not so common, but almost all scooters are foldable and are very easy to slide under because they're not like made in a way that they've got like a big L, so you can often slide this part underneath, like in between your legs in a seat. So like they're very, very portable, a lot more than you maybe would think. Even a folding bike can have a little bit of trouble. You have to fold it up, but because of like this is like creating a whole massive square. If you think about this, a whole square that's taking space, and you've got the width of the handlebars. You've got so much space being taken up there by this bike. Meanwhile, you've got the scooter, which usually is a bit less long and less tall, but then you've got this whole empty dead space here, which you can use to slide this or just fold it up and store it somewhere. So a lot less bulky here. And then the price. The price is a really bad thing about electric bikes. They're usually a lot more expensive than electric scooters. Electric scooters are a lot cheaper. The exact reason I can't say for sure, but my guess is that it's because you're basically buying a bike plus the electronic components, while a scooter is just a battery with a wheel and a motor. Like, you're getting a bike plus the electric part, while here it's just more like a slab of metal with a motor on. You just buy like the motor and battery almost. So I find the bikes tend to be a bit more expensive, quite a bit more actually. One pro that I forgot to mention about the electric bikes is the laws. Laws, when it comes to many countries, I noticed that they tend to be more strict when it comes to the laws. I know in the UK, I'm not sure if that's the case still, but I know that they had a ban on electric scooters, but they didn't have on electric bikes, which is very weird. I don't agree with that at all, but I mean, I find, just generally speaking, people tend to be a lot more strict with laws when it comes to the electric scooters. Also, in the country I live in, Sweden, electric scooters by law are not allowed to go faster than 20 kilometers an hour. Now, I'm not saying that people don't go faster than that, but that's what is allowed. And electric bikes, they're allowed to go 25 kilometers an hour. So they get a bit extra speed there. So if we go over then to the pros of the electric scooters, they have I see a lot of people saying this. I've experienced this myself. Me personally, I'm not too much of a fan of this, but it's kind of like a floating experience when you're using the electric scooters. Like, you're able to sort of glide around, float around, like as if you're surfing sort of. And that's something I see described a lot online, and I also experience it myself. I think it's quite cool, but to be honest, I don't like it so much. Me personally, I'm more biased towards electric bikes, but it is definitely something, if you like the freedom of like standing up and just floating around, that is definitely something that some people really love electric scooters for. This is a very big selling point of electric scooters, having this floating stand-up experience. So you feel a lot more free, so to say. And also leads into the second point here, very easy to dismount. Like, say you come to a traffic light and you have to stop there, it's easy, just step one step and that's it. Like, it's so much easier to dismount, while a bike, you have to either put your tiptoes down or just get fully off. That is a lot less convenient to dismount. So when you're in the city, an electric scooter is really nice because you can just quickly get your foot off and just wait until the traffic light has gone to green again. So I really like electric scooters for like just lots of starts and stops in cities. They're nice for that. They're also, just because of their portability we were talking about before, really easy. Like, you can fold them up a lot easier than electric bikes, I find. Now, depending on you can find good folders as well, but almost all of the electric scooters I come across are able to fold up. You can just slide under your desk, put it and take it to different places and charge it there, or you can just bring it with you in a shop. Like, it's less bulky, so you're not in the way of everyone if you were to take it into a shop. I find, generally speaking, that it seems to be more socially accepted, at least where I live, to bring an electric scooter into a shop. Not as socially accepted, I find, to bring my bike in to a shop. I don't feel like people stare at me a bit if I were to do that, so I try to avoid that. But scooters seem to be less more socially accepted, and I think it's just because they're less bulky. They take less space. They'll take less space than taking a little a buggy, a stroller into the shop. So I find them to be really smooth in that. Just take them with you, going in and out, just jump off them. They're very smooth, very like a streamlined experience when it comes to urban tasks you want to just quickly do on your scooter. And then another thing is that we want to be able to take this on public transport. These are amazing because you can just slide them in under the seats. It's very nice because of the L shape. You can either fold up or just slide in the bottom part underneath the seat. Really good. They don't take much space. And then another pro is they're a lot cheaper. And what am I talking about? Well, the entry-level scooters, you can get them for like $200-300. Entry electric bikes, on the other hand, usually go for at least $600-700. So they're a lot cheaper. I think it's just because they don't have that drivetrain, all the other components that come with a bicycle, while they're just simple, tiny wheels, a brake or two, a slab of metal with a motor, and a battery. So that's something that is great about them. They're a lot cheaper. So if you want to get some easy micro mobility on the cheap, then a scooter is definitely a way to go, because you're going to get a lot more bang for the buck. Like, if you want to get a 15 amp hour battery based scooter, it's a lot more cheaper than a 15 amp hour battery based electric bike. And then just because of that, they're a lot simpler as well. No need for drivetrain maintenance, no need to oil up the chain or anything like that. Make sure the gears shift correctly. Just keep them Make sure your brakes are tuned, like this disc brake here. Just make sure that works, and then you're fine. You're good to go. And then cons, then, well, there are a few cons. They are a bit slower depending on the laws. So in Sweden, for as mentioned before, 20 kilometers an hour, and then a bike 25 kilometers an hour, and less stable. I don't find them to be as stable. I mentioned that before. Less accessible parts. Like, if something breaks, a little bit maybe less accessible than an electric bike. Everything is sort of made to fit on a scooter, usually as one package, while on electric bikes I find them to be less. It depends a lot on bike to bike. Some are really made to just be one package as well, but I find them to be a bit more open source. They're like, well, okay, you just fit it in and that's it. Fit in a new motor, or have the, you're going to get more parts like tires, for example. Very easy to find new 28-inch tires and disc brakes and everything. Now, some disc brakes are very similar to the ones on bicycles that you can find on scooters as well. But generally speaking, I find if you want to get replacement parts, quite a bit easier to use get them on bicycles compared to scooters. And then the last thing, well, we mentioned this before as well. If the battery runs out, you're sort of stranded. You're not fully stranded. You can kick yourself forward while kicking on the ground, but not at all as effective as using a bicycle to pedal your way forward. So you've got always a little bit more of a backup when you're going with an electric bicycle. So that's my comparison of electric bikes and electric scooters. So if I was to use an electric bike, I'd probably personally have an electric bike if I were to be going further distances, like maybe 3 kilometer plus each route, and because I'm able to utilize that speed and extra range. That would be nice, that where I would use the electric bikes, and maybe with less stops. I prefer the electric bike as well. Electric bikes are also good if you want to get a workout in as well, because you can get a workout in, tune that assist level and pedal your way up as well. Electric scooters, I would say, is for people who maybe want to do like very small trips, maybe 1 or 2 kilometers max, and they've got a lot of stops, and maybe want to go quickly in and out of shops. Just to get, if you live in the middle of the city, they are very nice then, because it doesn't really matter too much about the top speed. Then it's more about how easy it is to stop and start and get in and out of shops, so I'd say. And that's where electric scooters are going to be amazing. Electric scooters would also be good if you've got very space constrained areas like storages, and just in general, like when you're going in the public transport, these would be a lot more smooth. Or you want to just quickly take it inside into a car, a lot smoother when you're going to use the electric scooter. So definitely, if I live in the middle of the city, everything is very close to me, I go with the electric scooter. If you live in a place where maybe in the suburbs, or where stuff is a little bit further away from you, or maybe even more the countryside, I'll go with an electric bike, because you're going to be coming further and going a bit faster probably on it, at least according to law. Then, yeah, okay, you can get the electric scooters to go at 70 kilometers an hour, but I'm talking about legal ones. So that's what I would do. And also, if you're used to riding bicycles and want to do a lot more DIY stuff, then definitely electric bike as well would be a good option for you. If you want to like tweak a lot with your bike, maybe get a DIY and convert an old one, then it could be also an option to go with the electric bikes. But you will still not have that same smoothness as an electric scooter. You're still going to have that big bulkiness. So it depends a lot. Do you want something that's really small, compact, easily accessible in and out, like when it comes to shops? Then lightweight, maybe not, but some electric scooters are also very heavy, but easier to transport, because you can fold up this part and then carry it a lot easier than a bicycle. Overall convenience, electric scooters are very nice, but maybe a bit less stable. Electric bikes, stable, fast, very, very bulky, more expensive. So choose according to that. I think they all have their good uses. I think both are very good devices, the inventions that were made. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something new. That's me comparing electric bikes to electric scooters. If you did enjoy the video or learn something new, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later.